talking about something that may be a little difficult for some people to admit. Um, I was in my discipleship class and this topic was brought up, and it was something that I stated because we were playing a game and no one could relate or no one honestly wanted to admit it. And today I'll talk about rather, have you ever been upset with God? And if I be honest, I have. And the situation to where I was actually upset with God. So back in 2019, I lost my grandmother. And after I lost my grandmother, I kind of put myself in a place to where I always stayed busy. I was working multiple jobs, doing hair. So it almost seemed like I was working almost three jobs. I was barely sleeping because whenever I would cry, I would make myself stop and just try to make myself do something else. I wouldn't allow myself to grieve. So fast forward to 2021, when I lost my cousin, it's like the grief of both of them hit me really, really hard. And when with my cousin, why I ended up being upset with God is because my mom had called me that morning to tell me that my cousin had had a rough night and that they were headed down to check on him. He was in the hospital due to complications from COVID. And when they got down there, well, she told me that they were on their way down to Louisiana, where he was in the hospital at. And I was in the midst of praying. It was about maybe 2 hours later, and I was in the midst of praying. I had talked to my sister, and I was just over there by myself, just praying. And at the moment that I said, God, please help my cousin, my phone rang, and it was my mom, and she had my sister on three-way, and she basically told us that he was gone. And in that moment, I instantly became angry. And I said, and I cursed, and I said, and what the F am I praying for? And I shouted, and I just was so upset, and I just broke down in tears. And from that moment, um, for a little while, it became difficult for me to pray. I kind of stopped praying because I was almost afraid to pray. I didn't understand what was the purpose for praying when he still took my cousin from me. And over the course of the next few months, that happened in August. So over the course of the next few months, I wouldn't go anywhere. I didn't want to be around people because anything could cause me to break down. And I did not want to show that level of weakness around other people. So I kind of stayed away from people. But what this did, and then at that time, I was also self employed. So I was working as an independent carrier and I would just be in my van or whatever. So only time that I would have interactions with anyone is when I had to do a pickup or do a delivery. And other than that, I could just be in my van and just cry from destination to destination if that's what I chose to do. Um, and then I noticed around maybe like November, December, I even during that time, I also tried to do a little content creating. I was taking photos and stuff, and it just became a point where I didn't like any of the pictures that I was taking. And of course, during this time, I'm not being around other people. So I noticed that I found myself in a deep depression. And when I was in this depression state, I wouldn't talk to anybody. Of course, I was not praying. Um, in this depressive state, I know from December to February, I did not comb my hair. I just kept a scarf on my head and a baseball cap, and nobody knew. And I felt like I was hidden in plain sight because not only was I wearing that baseball cap, but I would have a mask on. So it was almost like I was invisible to the outside world. And during this time, there were a lot of things that were going on. I was starting to have um, mechanical issues on my van, and they were very costly, like 800 and some dollar repairs, 500 and some dollar repairs. And the difficult part of this, I didn't have any type of credit card or anything, so I would have to make the decision. I had to get the van fixed because in order that was my source of income, so I had to have that. So a lot of times I wasn't paying my rent. So it just was a difficult time, and regardless of how difficult it was, I just could not find myself to pray. And I continued to go through this cycle. And then in February, a friend of mine was getting married. So I had to do my hair. And I told her on the phone, I was like, I'm afraid to go out. And she was like, what do you mean? She said, and I told her, I feel like people can see me. Because honestly, in my mind, with me not combing my hair, me wearing a baseball cap, I felt like I was hidden from everybody else. But now with my hair done and no mask on, people are going to see me. And she didn't understand because, like I said, I didn't tell anybody that I was going through this depression. So even after that, I just remember I was sitting in my bathroom. It was either that February or that March, and things were just horrible. And it was just like I got to that place, I got to my breaking point to where I felt like, what is the point of me being here if I don't feel, I mean, this is all it is. I go to work, I come home, I'm struggling there. Um, I, I'm having issues with my rent. I'm on the borderline of being put out. Like, what's the point to life here? And it wasn't what a place that I felt like I wanted to kill myself or anything, but I just didn't feel like, what is my reason for being here? Why am I here? For what, God? And so at this point in my bathroom, I broke down. I broke down. It's like the emotions of the grief and the loneliness and all of that and the financial difficulties, all of it just came crashing down, and I broke down in my bathroom, and I started praying. And I started praying to God, and I just told him, I am tired. I am tired. I don't know what else to do at this point. I don't feel like there's a purpose for me here. Like, what is it? I am tired, God. I need you to help me. God, help me get past this grief. Help me get past this depression. Help me get past these income issues. Help me get past all of this anger that I have in me. I'm sorry. Forgive me for the anger that I've had towards you, but I need you. I need you. And when I came out of that prayer, my phone rang, and it was someone, a distant family member or whatever through former marriage. They were actually a ex-wife or whatever, called me, and she was like, hey, what you doing? Can you come over? And she wanted me to do her hair and her son's hair. That's instant income. And by the time I got over there and being around them and just being in that environment, because like I say, I've been closing myself off and just in the house staying away from people. And they started to bring me out of my shell, and just being around them and feeling that family support around me, it did a lot. And it wasn't until I actually turned to God and surrendered to him in that moment that things started to come around. And even though he didn't hold the fact that I was angry with him, but he did remove his hands from me, only because I turned away from it. I could not pray. I was no longer talking to him during that time. But the minute that I fell and came back to him and prayed to him, it seems like all of my circumstances started turning around. That April, I was at that same person's house, and a relative of hers, I was talking about, I needed a job because I had just gotten news that not only was I struggling to pay the rent that I was paying previously due to the van issues, but I found out that at my lease renewal, it was going up $500. And though I could make it on the van, I had to be out from sun up to sundown. I wanted to be sure that I had that guaranteed income. So I went and picked up this job on the weekends. And she told me about where she worked, and I applied. And the next day they called me. And within a week or two, I was working at that job. So my financial situation changed around. Um, it was just all turnaround when I allowed God back in. Now, he started changing my mental state. But at that time, even though I was hanging with these people, I did start drinking a lot. I was drinking a lot. I was smoking a lot. So I still was kind of off course. And even though I was in a better mental space, about a year or so from there, I started noticing some other things happen in September of 2022. And I had to really take a look at what I was doing. Jazz, you're doing too much. you're doing too much drinking, you're doing too much smoking, you're doing too much. You're still out of alignment with God. So it was like He changed my mental state, He changed my financial state. And I finally had a realization that whenever I call on God, He shows up for me. But why is it that I'm not being obedient to Him and doing what it is that He requires of me on a consistent basis? And that's when I decided, going into 2023, I decided, I've heard bits and pieces about the Bible and I've never read it for myself. So, what exactly does God require of me? And even though I was praying and I was doing my morning devotional, it still took me until about, I think, September of 2023 to finally get down and start reading my Bible on a daily basis and start reading the Bible in a year. And once I started doing that in the way that I was praying, God started to reveal things to me and He started to convict me of things. And that kind of was my beginning cycle to getting to a place of completely surrendering to Him. I did give up the drinking in October or November of 2023, and then the smoking didn't go away until May of 2024 because I saw the changes that were happening in my life when I started the drinking. So it allowed me to stop the smoking as well. And once I completely let go of all of those things because I had made the smoking an idol in my life, I was still having that spiritual warfare. Whenever we expose ourselves to sin, we are allowing an open portal for the devil to come in. And we can't control the way that he comes in. And as I stated in a previous video, I noticed that I was having dreams, but I wasn't remembering any of them. And I had a conversation with someone, and they told me that you're under spiritual warfare. And I had to really sit down and with God and ask Him, what is it that I'm still not doing? Where am I still being disobedient to you? And that's when I started getting convicted of the smoking. And I was no longer getting high, just to be honest. Like I was wasting my money because I would smoke, I would eat edibles. Nothing was happening. It was just like, stop, stop. And it revealed to me how I had made that an idol in my life. And once I stopped that and I went on this different fast, I was able to record 21 dreams. I was able to start back clearly hearing the voice of God. And at the end of that fast, about a week later, is when I had my encounter with God. That video is on my channel as well. So it brought me to the point that, it's okay if you're angry with God, but sit down and have a conversation with Him. Ask God to reveal Himself to you and clear out those other things and see how God will change and transform your life. And to this day, He's still doing that. I had to give away my worldly desires, my fleshly desires, the things that I wanted for my life and allow His will to be done and completely surrender and submit my life to Him. And it has been completely different since then, mentally, financially, physically, emotionally. Everything in my life has transformed since I was honest with God and I submitted to Him and I changed my life around. So when the question is asked, have I ever been angry with God? Yes, I have. But I know what I've learned since then. I'll never allow myself to be angry with Him. I have to take the anger out on myself and see how I'm destroying me emotionally and mentally and just surrender to Him and allow Him to take control. So I hope this touched someone. And just to let somebody know it's okay. It's okay. But turn to God. I promise you, just turn to Him and submit to Him because He will turn everything around. Y'all have a blessed day.